Um, all right, so I'll skip forward to Melbourne, which again was at Festival Hall, which was at the same venue that they played in 2008.
So did you fly to Melbourne also?
Yeah, yeah.
So this sounds like a lot of flying from city to city to go to all these shows.
Yeah, pretty much. My wife and I and a few of our friends, we just basically it's the only way to get from city to city in Australia. So within a day, it was basically see a show, sleep for a few hours, catch a flight, and then head to the venue in the early afternoon or whatever. So it was a pretty crazy week in that sense. But we were lucky enough to the Thursday between the Adelaide and Melbourne show, there was a day off, so we got a day to recover. And my wife ended up winning the meet and greet for the Melbourne show, and obviously didn't want to take me because that would be a little bit awkward, I think, and stalkerish if the band are like, "Hey, didn't we see you in Perth?"
Not being 6'7", I'm pretty sure they would have recognized.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It would have been hard to go. No, it wasn't me.
My twin brother.
Yeah, exactly. So my wife went in with a good friend of ours from Melbourne, and so again they were in the meet and greet for about an hour, and the band were really practicing, which I think the Festival Hall show recording, or there's a recording come out from the Festival Hall show, and they're doing this sort of new ending to Tarantula, where it's kind of like an extended outro. It sounds like a Kiss riff. If I've got that wrong, please correct me. But they were practicing that for a good half hour or so. And that at one point, as Mike was doing his sort of drum exit on Tarantula, he hit one of the microphones above one of his drums. Billy turned around to him and said, Jimmy never hit a mic. And then there was this awkwardness, this awkward silence. And then Jeff was like, yeah, and if Jimmy hit it, it stayed broken. And that they all just took themselves laughing. And that, Billy was like laughing, and the 10 people like waiting, everyone like cheered and had a bit of a laugh. And it was just this awkwardness of like, oh, okay, wow. So that it was just an unexpected story to hear from the soundcheck, I guess, that Jimmy's name would be mentioned and that they'd be making fun of Mike when he screws up. So
that's very interesting to hear. So people always talk about how they like James's asides that he would say in the 90s, and Jeff on the 2007 and 08 tour was pretty quiet, and now he talks more. Maybe his shtick can be making things that Billy says that makes everyone uncomfortable into a joke that everyone can laugh at. That'll be Jeff's role as far as the banter goes. I can see this happening quite well.
He's evolving into it. Well, yeah, I have to say, one of the things that we did notice was that Jeff was more talkative and more engaging, I guess, with the crowd compared to the 2008 tour. So I guess he's feeling more comfortable on stage these days. But
Simon, you didn't perceive that Billy's comment already was kind of a joke?
That's a good point. I didn't actually.
I mean, the issue
I wasn't there, but I mean, I don't know. I've never really seen
I think it's
Billy
a joke. I think it's
to
just
say something like that seriously, and I've read lots of reports of him saying things like that seriously, but then sometimes you'll get to see the footage and the report will be wrong or something. Like, I went to, this is so similar in a way, their show in, their surprise opening set for Cheap Trick in May 1998, right? At Metro. Jim DeRogatis wrote about something that happened, an exchange between Billy and Kenny Aronoff, right? And DeRogatis wrote about it in his book, and DeRogatis characterized it as Billy the Dictator being an asshole. everyone was laughing, including Kenny. It was clearly a gag, you know? And Derogatis, like, took that incident completely out of context and used it to fuck Billy over. And, you know, I don't know. I've been around this guy a lot, and it's hard to imagine him being like, Mike, Jimmy never hit him.
Oh yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I'd say it was just him having a bit of a fun, a bit of a laugh.
I think it's obviously he's making a joke. It's just the reality was that no one laughed at his joke, and we needed Jeff to kind of...
Right. Yeah. I just want to make that clear for our listeners that, you know.
Oh yeah, no, it was definitely a joke from Billy's behalf. He's not, you know, berating Mike and then kicking him off the stage or anything.
Yeah. See, and I'm right. Which validates what I'm saying. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Awesome.
We don't want those rumors to be started.
Yeah.
So I guess that was you know, besides the sound check things, from anyone that I guess you guys that went to them in the US and that anyone that went to them here, everyone just says it's just such an awkward experience that, you know, you're in this venue where you know, there's all the roadies and everything around you setting up for the night, all the stage crew doing all their stuff, and the band's on stage doing bits and pieces, and you know, and you're watching these songs, and you don't know whether to clap at the end of them or say anything, or don't want to be talking during the show because you don't know, you know, if security are then going to usher you out or whatever. So besides, you know, them working on this ending towards Tarantula, which was actually really interesting to watch, them play that song that night, because you could see them all sort of looking at each other like, all right, are we going to get this right? Are we going to screw it up? How's it going to sound? Is it going to go down well? And it ended up going down really well. And at the end of, I know I'm jumping ahead into the show from soundcheck, but it was definitely a thing that at the end, whatever Mike was meant to do, he must have done it right. And Billy just walked over and gave him like a huge high five and just looked right at him like, okay, yeah, that was perfect. We all did it well. And so that was really kind of cool to see the band, I guess, interacting like that, which was something that I never really saw on the 2008 tour as much. So again, with Melbourne being at the Festival Hall venue, and that's where they played in 2008, where Billy had a tantrum, meltdown, whatever you want to call it, on stage in 2008, where people were talking during, I think it was My Blue Heaven, which would then segue into Everlasting Gaze from memory. And
brilliant transition.
It worked well. And he was, obviously there were people talking during My Blue Heaven and everything. And instead of the segue happening, house lights went up, Billy walked off stage, and people were like, what? This can't be the end of the show. And so there was a part of me that was not nervous, but I guess anticipating what the show was going to be like, you know, back at this venue where it didn't go down so well last time. Back in the 2008 tour, you know, they came back out and did an encore of Everlasting Gaze, United States, and Set the Controls to the Heart of the Sun, I think.
Yeah, that's right. I'm looking at it.
Yeah. So, again, didn't really win the crowd over back then. And this show seemed to do the same sort of thing as I was saying in Adelaide, where I knew some people that had been big Smashing Pumpkins fans that I had known for 10 or more years now, that after that show in Melbourne were like, nah, that's it, the band are dead to me. And I know that one of these guys had won tickets because his girlfriend was taking photos that night or something, so he had a free ticket, so he came and saw it. And I spoke to him afterwards, and he's like, I have to say, this show's changed my view of the band. Yes, they're not the band of, you know, back in the day, but this current lineup and the new stuff that they're playing isn't half bad. So, as we said before, it seems to be the general consensus of this tour that people are getting won over. I guess one of the big stories from the Melbourne show, which was a bit awkward, and I think it had been picked up in many reviews and YouTube videos, was Billy's rant in the middle of the show, which, again, was just him talking to the crowd and making the jokes, the dumb old jokes that he's made for 21 years or so, that when I was reading some reviews and people were saying, Corgan's rant in the middle of the show, and I'm thinking, wait, when? There was a rant? No, it was just him joking around, and sure, he ended up speaking for, a whole, I think maybe 6 or 7 minutes or something like that.
No, it was 10, Simon. It was 10.
Oh, 10,
if you read the news articles instead of watching the YouTube clip, you would have known it was 10 minutes.
I think there was actually one on fasterlouder.com.au which said 15 minutes. So they must have got some.
It's even longer than I thought. 15 minutes, Simon.
Yeah, he just kept going and ranting at the crowd. It was just him having fun, and obviously, I was lucky enough to see the shows beforehand where Perth, hardly spoke. Adelaide spoke a little more, and I guess he felt a bit more comfortable in Melbourne and just wanted to joke around with the crowd. There ended up being, we had a friend of ours that was standing towards the back of the crowd near the mixing desk, and close to her there was this huge guy that got up on his mate's shoulders and was shouting out something to the band while Billy was talking. And I think if you've watched the YouTube clips, he ends up dedicating Spangled to that guy, that guy's boyfriend or something like that. And it turns out because the guy...
okay, go ahead.
The guy had taken his shirt off and was screaming something at Billy. And then it was a few songs after that. I think it was during Tonight, we were watching Billy, and he was just laughing and smiling. And I was thinking, oh wow, is this because the crowd were loving Tonight and singing along to it, and I was thinking, oh, that's why he's smiling. The crowd are getting into it. No, it turns out during Tonight, this guy that had been talking to him and shouting out stuff to him had stripped off, completely nude, and was on his friend's shoulders, which I don't understand how that would work. And Billy could see him from the stage, and I think that would throw any performer off, seeing that happen. So I guess a naked man, maybe that was a highlight of the Pumpkin show, possibly. I don't know.
So when you were talking about the rant, was this the one where he was talking about the older fans and saying how the older fans don't get it and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Or is that from a different show?
I'm trying. No, that was during Adelaide. That was Adelaide, where I think he said, "I'm not a slave to my old songs."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the Adelaide show, which that rant only went for probably, I guess, 2 or 3 minutes. It wasn't as epic as the Melbourne show. The Melbourne show was the one where he ended up talking about he was talking about rugby or something and joking around with Gio for a bit, and then to be honest, I haven't listened to the recording or watched the YouTube videos. I can't exactly remember what his rant was, but all I remember was him just joking with the crowd. There was no anger or compared to the 2008 tour where he did actually have a go at the crowd and actually, was not good Billy back then. It was angry Billy at the crowd. The one thing that I do remember from from the Melbourne Festival Hall show was when they started playing Gossamer. And there was this guy next to me. I was at the front again. And this guy had been getting into the whole show. He'd been loving everything. And during the encore, I had a quick little chat with him. And, he was, saying to me, he goes, I'm loving these new songs. It's all great. And I'm like, oh, cool. And he goes, what are they playing for the encore? And I'm like, oh, look, not going to spoil the surprise for you. And I'm thinking, surely he must know Gossamer. He's been talking to me about some of the Tear Garden songs and everything. So I thought, no, I'm not going to spoil it. You'll wait and see. I have not seen someone so bored in their life at a show that when Gossamer was halfway through, this guy was like just leaning on his arm against the rail, like, hurry up and finish, I'm over this. Which was just, and I guess I must say that I am a Gossamer fan. I enjoy the epicness of it. So, I'm one of those guys. But
you're one of our readers, basically.
Yeah, I'm one of, that's it.
You're one of the readers that isn't me.
Yeah, it's not Chris. That's right.
Well, I guess we were only getting the bridged version. We're only getting the 20-minute version. We're not talking the 35, 39-minute version or whatever. So if I saw one of them, it could have been a completely different reaction from them, maybe. But
maybe we need to start referring to it as Gossamer short version.
Have the different iterations. I have to say that the set list after Billy's rant in the middle of the show, where they teased Stairway to Heaven for a bit, which was pretty cool. The set list structure after that just worked really well for the crowd, because I guess it was like Spangled, Stumbling, Cherub Rock, Zero, Stands Like Love, Shame, Freak, Tonight Tonight, Tarantula, all these sorts of songs that had newer songs mixed in with the old, and it just seemed to really work for the crowd, and everyone was really getting into it. And I have to say, I think they lost the crowd towards the end, especially with Gossamer. We left the venue and we're walking out, and there was these probably about 20 or so guys standing there just chanting, "Billy's a wanker, Billy's a wanker." And,
drink.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Is that number 4 or 5? I don't know. Anyway, and this was, as they were just like waiting to, like, in the car park behind the venue, and I'm like,
drink.
Again, it was just that weird experience of like, oh, okay, I think if they had finished at the end of Tarantula, maybe it would have been a completely different story. But I think that was also another thing that some of the reviews from the Melbourne show, and I think you guys mentioned earlier, that was the night we got the 2 20-minute solos. I think there was a review on that. So,
well, that's like, I mean, I tweeted about that kind of as a joke. I mean, you're literally dealing with, I hardly even want to call it student journalism. I mean, it's like something below even that. I mean, it's nothing to be taken seriously, but.
Oh God, no. So I think, all in all, comparing the 2008 Melbourne show to this show, it was a completely different experience and a more positive experience, despite a few people, I guess not being super happy with it. But I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that, from my memory about that Melbourne show.
You should actually be proud, because in Canada, the real journalists do stuff like that.
Oh, really?
But in Australia, it's just the students, the upstarts.
I think there were a few other real journalists who weren't too impressed that they didn't play 1979 or Disarm or something, which seems to be the two songs that always get raised down here, that they were left off the set list. Therefore,
well, at least that was true. At least that was true. They didn't play it in Canada. Yeah, in Canada they would have played it, and then they would have reported that they didn't play it.
Those people that write their reviews before the show. So
they're called Canadians. I'm sorry.
So I'm sure I'm probably forgetting some things with the Melbourne show, but I guess if I had the next night, we ended up in Sydney, and for what was my final show of the tour. And during that day, Billy had tweeted about there being a surprise for that night. And, I was like, okay, I can't see them to be honest, I had no idea, obviously, what the surprise was, which was kind of cool. When we got down to the venue, a friend of ours who had won the meet and greet for the Sydney show had mentioned something about that Jess had tweeted some Vines lyrics or something like that, and he was like, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if the Vines joined the Pumpkins on stage?" And I'm thinking, what? Like, to me, I'm not a Vines fan. I know they're an Australian band, but never really engaged me at all. So I wasn't even aware that they were still a band. I thought they had broken up a few years ago, but apparently they released something in 2008.
That's so great. It says the Smashing Pumpkins fans.
Right, exactly. How you can identify with those people. Oh, you're seeing the Pumpkins are back together?
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah, that reminded me. We were, as we were leaving Melbourne to catch our flight to Sydney, one of our friends that was with us was wearing his old Zero shirt, and the security lady was just like, "Oh, I love the Smashing Pumpkins. I wish they would get back together one day." And then he just had this look and had to break the news to her. It was like, "They played last night at Festival Hall." And she's like, "What?" It's like, "I didn't know they were back together." And he's like, "Yes, they've been back together for a few years now." So
they're not back together though.
Oh yeah, sorry. They've evolved.
I was gonna say, were the Vines, did they have all their original members or not?
That's the only thing I care about. Are all the people still in the Vines? Because otherwise I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I'm the wrong guy to ask with that. I know, look, I know, and this, reflects the Pumpkins whole thing. I know that the lead singer's still there. I'm pretty sure that the other guy that joined him on stage, he looked fairly familiar. I maybe had seen him at a few festivals when I walked past and seen the Vines on stage.
Wikipedia says there's 2 past members listed.
Oh no!
Come on, every band's got 2 past members.
Yeah.
Fair.
So I'm sorry to all Vines fans out there. Anyway, it ended up being that obviously the Vines joined them on stage, but during the sound check, the band were sound checking Tristessa, and we'd found out obviously that there was going to be a surprise, and I was thinking, oh, maybe that will be it. They'll just bring out Tristessa, because I guess that's been a song that on this tour is, well, not the Australian tour, but since June or so, it's been played 3 or 4 times, something like that, maybe. And so I was expecting that would be a pretty cool surprise, whether that's it or not. And
see though, a surprise when Billy does this, and he does this fairly often, like special show tonight or surprise coming, and it'll usually be something like
wrestlers coming on stage, that sort of thing.
A brand new song. I was gonna say a brand new song no one's ever heard. I
was gonna say, all these times he says there's a surprise and people speculate online about, oh, he's gonna play such and such song, or it's gonna be great, and it always ends up being like the special guest on stage, or Mexican wrestlers wrestle around on stage. And I remember thinking when I forget if he tweeted or announced or something, that when he was in France for the book reading a few weeks ago, there's going to be a surprise. Everyone's like, oh crap, he's going to play a concert. And I remember thinking, yeah, right, this is typical Billy. He says that there's going to be a surprise, and it ends up not being musically related at all. And sure enough, he plays like a 6 or 7 song set.
So it looks to me like the founding bass player of the Vines left in 2004. That's all we need to say.
Okay. All right.
No, but in Chicago on this tour, he definitely used that whole surprise language. Like in the middle of the show, it was like, we got something special or whatever, and it was like, we're gonna play Blessed Mother now. Like nobody cares. It's very special for Chicago tonight.
Well, I thought the surprise was like having everyone on stage for 1979. No.
No, it was a different show.
Maybe it was special. They're special and they're surprise.
Oh.
I don't know.
Well, I guess Blessed Mother was a surprise, not necessarily a good surprise, but for some people
fine.
it was.
It's fine, but it's like a Joe Pumpkins fan in the crowd. Like when he hears they're about to do something special, gets excited, and it's like a new song you've never heard that I wrote yesterday.
Yeah, so I didn't want to get everyone's hopes up, by playing Chinese whispers down the line of, hey, they just sound checked Tristessa, they just sound checked. I didn't do that because I didn't want to get people's hopes up and then them look at me after the show and be like, hey, that's the guy that taught us they play Tristessa.
I sat around the whole show waiting for Tristessa. I didn't enjoy any of it because I was expecting Tristessa.
That's what I was worried about, but so kept my mouth shut on that one. But apparently to my friend that was in soundcheck, he said it was great, it sounded great, so he got to hear it on the tour, even though it was just soundchecked. And again, the soundcheck and meet and greet for Sydney, again, was about an hour and a half that they were in there. And one thing that was mentioned was that as the band were playing and doing the soundcheck, at all the other meet and greets, the winners basically stood back a bit from the rail and watched. Whereas in Sydney, there was like a group of about 4 or 6 people that kept walking up to the stage and then like posing. And I'm going to try and describe this as best as I could, best as I can, like posing at the foot of the stage and like pointing up to the band and getting their friends to take photos. Does that sort of make sense? I can picture that. And apparently Billy's like looking down at these people as they're playing, like, what are you doing? We're giving you a special, moment here. And, you're doing these, posy shots, which I don't think was looked too kindly upon from the band. But again, everything else went really well. And sorry, just as I was talking about the meet and greets, I'm remembering something from the Perth meet and greet, which, if you don't mind me jumping back to that, there was a guy there that got Billy to sign a Jimmy Chamberlain Complex CD.
Oh.
Yeah. Which was a bit awkward. So I thought I'd just mention that. Billy was cool with it. He had a laugh and, was fine with it. But just thought I'd throw that out there that, if you're wanting, a companion signature on that and you're heading to another show, Billy's cool with it. So please don't all do it.
Did the guy say, this whole CD is garbage except Low Key Cat?
Yeah. He did say, I know that you played on one song, so at least he had that.
That's probably the only reason Billy signed it.
Yeah, I think so. Don't take any of this CDs though. Anyway, but the actual Sydney show was, I guess, the biggest venue that they had played. I think it was capacity of about 3,000 or so. And it's part of Luna Park, which is a well-known sort of like an amusement park down in Sydney. And they had the big venue in the middle of the park called the Big Top. And a friend of mine saw Nine Inch Nails play there a few years ago, and Trent had a meltdown, and because it was like really bad sound in the show, in concert and everything. And I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. I'd never actually been to a show there, but everyone that was speaking to in line, they're like, this isn't just a really crappy venue, and they don't know why the Pumpkins are playing that. There's plenty of more, I guess, better venues that they could be playing. But from where we were, it ended up, sounding fine, and it was great. The set list was very similar to the Perth set list. They brought back Drown and As Rome Burns.
There's some sort of alarm going off here.
Jason's fire alarm.
Yeah, hold on. I'll mute my mic.
Jason apparently started a fire.
Wow. Sorry, where was I? The set list ended up being really similar, and the Sydney show, the Sydney crowd definitely was by far the most energetic and into everything that the band was playing. And I have to say that the people around us and friends of ours that were standing elsewhere said that Lonely Is the Name, like, people were really getting into it, and there were a few people, asking the person next to them, what is this song? I really like it. And there was like a next to us, my wife and I, there was a young girl who had just turned 18, and this was her first rock concert at the front, and she was like asking us, oh yeah, what is this song? And we're like, oh look, it's a new song. It may or may not be on the next EP. Don't hold your breath, you don't know, but chances are it will be. And it seemed to go down really well in the live environment. So I guess I hope the band take the positive reaction to Low Me Is the Name and go with it, because I've been really enjoying it. So then obviously I guess the big difference with the Sydney show was the big surprise of the Vine lead singer Chris, and obviously I don't know the other guy's name, come out and do the encore of their song Get Free, which the crowd seemed to absolutely love and get into, and Billy and Jeff were really getting into it. I think Billy was just having fun on stage, playing somebody else's song and not being, the center of attention, and just being able to rock out to the side. And that was actually really enjoyable to watch, even as a non-Vines fan. It was just cool to watch the band work their way through the song. And just remembering during United States at the Sydney show, usually, and I guess this probably happened elsewhere, that the rest of the, as Mike's doing his drum solo, the rest of the band will sort of exit off stage and just leave Mike there. And for the Sydney show, I think Nicole left, but Billy basically just stood and leant against his guitar amp stack behind him, and Jeff just sat on the floor, and it was just really weird to watch Jeff. He put his guitar down and he just sat there cross-legged watching Mike play, and it was just such a weird experience. And then Jeff would like turn to the crowd and try and amp them up and be clapping, and it was just really weird to watch. All these other shows, everyone had walked off and exited, and there was Jeff just sitting down and enjoying Mike have his fun on stage. So
well, obviously Jeff was trying to get the experience that the Perth crowd had.
Yeah, exactly.
He was jealous that they all just got to sit there and watch, so now he got to sit there and watch.
I think he was more energetic and into it than some people in the Perth crowd. So I have to say the Sydney show was by far the most enjoyable for myself, and a lot of people that we spoke to afterwards that had either been to the Melbourne show or because we found out that there were a lot of fans that flew from Melbourne to Sydney. There's really cheap flights between each city, and it seems to be a common thing that most people just quickly take the half-an-hour flight, whatever it is, and catch a band up there. And a lot of them were saying that the Sydney show was more enjoyable for them than the Melbourne show, for whatever reason, whether it was the crowd, whether it was that there was a larger crowd or something. But and Sydney went off well, and even Gossamer. People there were confused looks around, but there were a lot of people getting into it as well. So I think that's all I can really say about the Sydney show. That was sort of it. There were no other real big highlights that sort of spring to mind. There were no rants. There was stage banter, but there was no angriness from.
So he was back to good Billy.
Yeah, he was well behaved.
Full circle. Nice story. That's great.
Yeah, so it was a really cool experience to obviously to see 4 shows within 5 days, and just see the dynamics of each show adjust either based on the venue or the size of the crowd or something like that. And I guess in my mind, it kind of made a point of next time I see a band live, and if it's a one-off show and it isn't that great, there's obviously going to be different reasons for it, unless you can compare from show to show.
So of all the shows, you think that the songs from Tear Garden that went over the best were Song for a Son and Lonely is the Name?
Yeah. Freak, it got the crowd into it, but it seemed to be, I guess, put between all these other sort of, bigger hits, I guess, and it was hard to gauge, were people cheering for Freak or were they cheering because Tonight had just started and... but yeah, definitely, I think Song for a Son was the one that went down well amongst everyone. And I have to say, the tour did change my view on Astral Planes. I was a very big anti-Astral Planes person, but hearing it or seeing it live, I guess I like it a little bit more.
That happened
I
for
think
me
that's been
too.
a pretty common reaction.
I just don't know if it's the studio version or whatever, but or whether it just works better. I personally think for me it works better just within a live environment.
It sounds heavier live.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the whole tour, and unfortunately we didn't make it up to Brisbane, which
You call yourself a fan?
I know. I call myself a model employee that needed to be back at work on Monday. Yeah. But from a few friends that flew up from Melbourne to catch the Brisbane show, it sounded like it was a fun night. The venue that they played, I can briefly talk about Brisbane. Obviously, I wasn't there, so I'm going on secondhand information. But I saw Billy at the Tivoli Theatre in Brisbane back in 2005 on the Future Embrace tour. And so it's a very small theatre, about 1,000 or so people. And so it would have been absolutely amazing to see the pumpkin sound within that place. I remember vividly the Future Embrace tour being enjoyable within that. Obviously comparing it to the Pumpkins, it would have been a lot more intimate. So, the Brisbane show, from all accounts, went well. They played, Disarm and Stitch in Time, which I was gutted about because I really wanted to hear that. It's my personal favourite Tear Garden song. Didn't get to hear it on the tour, so that's what I get for not flying to another city, I guess.
Yeah.
Billy knew.
I guess they also played My Love is Winter, which they didn't play in any of the other Australian shows.
No. A friend of ours that was in the meet and greet said that during the sound check, they were trying to work out, I'm trying to think what it ended up being between, Billy was trying to work out a song to put between Today and I, and there was one of the fans in the meet and greet shouted out, My Love is Winter. And that Billy was like, oh, I'd forgotten about that song, and decided to put it in the set list. So, kudos.
You better
to that
not
guy.
forget about that song.
Oh no, I'm with you on that. That's I was hoping that the Brisbane show wouldn't differ too much from the rest, but that My Love Is Winter and Stitch in Time, my two favourite, I guess, songs from Tear Garden at the moment, and he plays it at the show that I wasn't at.
So Billy, if you're listening, ignore the fact that fans like those songs. Maybe you'll them.
The reverse psychology with Billy, that will work.
I don't know what to do.
Start a petition or something. I don't know. That seems.
The lesson also is that you should shout out song titles, because if it's a song title of a song that Billy wants to play, he will play it, and then it'll seem like that he made your request come true.
Is that only during sound check or during a show?
All the time. If you see Billy in an airport,
no, it's got to be before.
I don't know if you guys got any questions about the Australian tour, anything that you've read that maybe I can shed some light on, or.
How many kangaroos were at the shows?
Heaps. We're just surrounded by kangaroos down here. Everything that you've read.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to clear it up, Simon, by asking.
Simon, did you say that the Sydney show, I think you said it was the best, and it was also the biggest? Because it's interesting to me because people have said about how this tour is, maybe the venues have been a little smaller, and that might contribute to the energy that is more packed in and maybe helping out the show. But I think you said the Sydney show was pretty big, right?
Yeah, well, it was about, I think at capacity it was 3,000, and it was sold out. Only the Sydney and Brisbane shows, I think, before, I don't know if they've sold out on the night or not, but the Sydney show was sold out, and
that's awesome.
Yes, yeah, and I guess it was played on a Saturday night. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. How loose people can get when they're at a show if it's on a Friday or a Saturday night compared to a Tuesday night, and, when people have work the next day or something like that. I'm sure if someone else went to 2 shows and they thought Melbourne was better than Sydney, it all comes down to personal opinion. But,
where you were.
60% is where you were. At least 60%.
Yeah, exactly.
Is where you sit. I was in front. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I was in the back. It was horrible.
And I guess another thing from the Sydney show was the security guards were really getting into it as well. They were enjoying it. There was a security guy in front of us that was he was doing some bit of air guitar to Cherub Rock. So that was kind of enjoyable and enjoyable for me to watch. I was thinking, buddy, you really should be doing your job, but
some fan runs by and tackles Billy, and the guy's doing his air guitar. That would be so awesome.
If people times it right, when he was distracted. Anyway.
All right, he's going into the solo now. We can go.
This is my But I guess the only other thing that I really haven't mentioned was the band playing Fellowship live to, I guess, what is a backing track in a way. The Fellowship seemed, whether it was because it was the first song and people were getting into it because of that, or whether it's the song itself, I think a lot of people were a bit taken back by the electric sound, being played. But it sounded great live. I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of the Fellowship. I wasn't that excited about it, and hearing the studio version hasn't really won me over as much as other people. But I enjoyed it live. It was good. So.
Well, at the shows where they opened with that, he wanted everyone to get on board.
I think there was
opening with Astral Planes is telling you to everyone gather.
So now he's got everyone gathered. Now they're getting on board, and
it should be Astral Planes Fellowship, right?
Yes,
doesn't that make more sense?
That depends how big Tesla is. Otherwise, you can get on board and gather.
And then he'll have a new song, Train Station, that he'll put in between those two.
Together, you guys, get it now.
So he's going to eventually just have a complete literal
a song cycle about traveling by train.
I could see that working. Maybe that's the grand theme of Tear Garden that we haven't discovered yet.
That's going to be the big reveal in the box set, that it's actually Train Garden by Kaleidoscope.
Oh. and it's a fold-out train set that you can put together. I know.
And the obelisk is actually a conductor's baton. I don't know. I'm sorry.
It's all coming together.
There's still no explanation for the obelisk.
I don't think there ever will be either.
Yeah. That's the secondary reveal. The obelisk still has no point. Sorry.
No. So I guess the only other thing to sort of mention from the Australian tour, we were pretty lucky. We got in contact with the band to see if we could video some of the shows, and they were cool with it. So the Melbourne show and Adelaide and Perth were all videoed, and a friend of ours is getting all the video together for that. So we're going to have some DVDs and torrents and stuff for people to download and enjoy the shows. But I think there's a number of audio recordings that possibly already, well, I know that they've been done, but I think some are still coming out for the Adelaide show. I don't know of anyone that recorded the audio for Perth, but yeah, we have a video of that, which I haven't heard from our friend who's been traveling since he videoed, but I hope that it's all right and I haven't oversold it, and there's going to be angry people if I don't deliver.
Well, normally they say when you watch something like this on TV, it's not really like being there, but with the Perth show, it sounds like it really will be like being there.
Pretty much it will be. Just get people to get up and walk in front of you every 5 minutes, and turn the lights down low and just be confused and pretend. Do it on a Tuesday night when you've got
have someone policing, and don't let people bring their drinks back into the living room. They have to drink them in the hallway, and then
it's through closed doors, and that will be the exact experience. Maybe we can release it in 3D. I don't know. Maybe we can take it up a notch.
That is the latest trend.
Exactly. We have to keep up with those trends.
Yep.
So, unless there's anything else that you guys have, I hope that I've given everyone a bit of a rundown on the Australian.
Totally cool.
Absolutely.
I would say it was a lot more enjoyable than the 2008 tour, which, was surprising in a way.
So do you have any future plans for Australia?
No, not at the moment. I'm too busy with work. I just tend to try and update it with anything that's sort of happening. But plans wise, no. It's just going to keep ticking along, and our purpose at the moment is just trying to get that news out there for people that when they can get access to the the tear garden stuff at the moment. Which, like when Songs for a Sailor came out, the only place that everyone could pre-order was Amazon, but the shipping alone from Amazon to Australia was more than the actual, the box set itself.
Wow.
I think the box set was like $20 and it was like $25 US just to get it shipped here. And then we weren't even expecting it to be available in stores in Australia, but then it ended up being available in stores. So that's just our sort of thing at the moment of just getting in contact with any distributors that be releasing it here and finding out if it is going to be available for people to purchase in store rather than spending more on a shipment. Because I think to give you an idea, it's about $70 Australian for Songs for a Sailor, which is a bit of an ask for a number of fans.
Come on, Tear Garden theme is worth it.
and maybe that's where all the 99 gold obelisks are. So. Who knows? Maybe I should go out there and buy one.
They're all sitting in some store in Australia, unpurchased.
Because people are just going, $99? Oh, sorry, $99. What am I saying? $70? Too much. So, that's it really for Australia. We just keep on keeping on.
Well, thanks a lot for joining us for the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been fun.
And I hope you'll come back if the pumpkins ever go back to Australia.
We will, for sure.
But not before then. You cannot be on the podcast unless the pumpkins
I'm not allowed. Just if they come to Australia.
Your expertise is... Yeah, your expertise is strictly regional.
Okay.
Well, the closing song tonight is Lonely is the Name from Sydney on October 16th, 2010. Good night, everybody, and good morning to those of you in Australia. The Hipsters United podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Smashing Pumpkins, Virgin Records, or Warner Brothers Reprise Records. All opinions offered by panelists or guests of the Hipsters United podcast are their own and do not represent the opinions of the Smashing Pumpkins. All audio during the show is licensed for non-profit use per the terms and conditions on the Live Music Archive at archive.org. Intro music is from the Machina 2 album released for free download on the internet by the Smashing Pumpkins in September of 2000.